Hello, everyone, and welcome to Total Michigan, where we interview ordinary Michiganders doing some pretty extraordinary things. I'm your host, Cliff DuVernois. What if the best years of your life are in front of you? What if your greatest adventure is awaiting for you after you turn 50, or even 60 for that matter? Now, you might be asking yourself, why is Cliff asking these questions? Well, I'm glad you asked. There's been this trend on Total Michigan lately where guests who are in their 50s or even quickly approaching their 50s were beginning to wonder about retirement. What were they going to do with themselves? Now, these people who, every one of them approaching retirement, every single one of them said, no, I got a lot of life left in me. I'm not ready to slow down and play golf. So they all explored and they're now sharing their real passions with the world, having an impact on others. And they all have amazing stories to share. So what I did is I picked out 3 stories from previous guests. We're going to pull some lessons that we can learn from them as they have navigated this chapter of their life and how they're crushing it. At the end, I'm going to share a bonus lesson, which I actually think is the most important. So make sure to stick around until the end to catch that one. To start us off, we are going to enter the world of wine. This is Brett Scharnhorst of Vinomondo, located in Port Huron. Let's go ahead and roll that clip.
My background is in IT, actually. I'm an IT project manager for a company called Taubman. Wonderful place. That's just what I've been doing for all of these years. That's what my career has been. But through a series of events that took place over the course of my life, I just found myself in a situation where I was talking to my wife and I said, I'm not so certain about our retirement. What are we going to do after we get to the point that, because, IT is an industry that is constantly evolving. We've got people coming out of colleges that know so much more than I do. And frankly, they can get paid less. So it's just something that kind of weighs on you after a while. I mean, right now I'm a project manager, so I've kind of evolved out of the, development phase of things, but it's something that always stuck in my mind. So my wife and I, having been repeat customers of Vinomondo here for 8 to 10 years, we thought, well, why don't we try our hand at making our own wines and see how that works out? So we started out something that was a grassroots operation.
Right.
And we learned shortly thereafter that the people who owned Vinomondo here were looking to retire and sell. So at that point, we thought, well, why don't we maybe just pool our resources and talk with the owners and see about buying this facility? Because we didn't want this place to go away. Our fear was that somebody was going to come in, put their own spin on it, change how things worked around here. The batch concept was absolutely a must-have. I mean, and that is something that we thought would probably be the first thing that would get cut. So, and we didn't want that because that's something that's really unique to Vinomondo. So we went through the natural course and channels and everything. We went through the process of purchasing the winery, and in September of 2022, it happened. So Jackie and I have been owners of Vinomondo Winery since then.
So Brett is an IT project manager who decided on trading in his keyboard and coding for grapes and wine barrels. During his interview, he mentioned that part of having Vinomondo was help to supplement their retirement income. Now, I got to admit, I'm a little bit suspicious of that because he was having way too much fun in that little shop. I do remember during the interview, I was going to ask him why he just didn't think about going into consulting. With all of his years of experience, he could do what any number of IT professionals do and just join the ranks of consultants, charge $150, $250 an hour and just call it a day. But the answer to that question was pretty obvious. He truly is passionate about what he does. This is what Gay Hendricks calls the zone of genius. Now, in his book, The Big Leap, Gay Hendricks talks about these 4 zones that people typically operate in. You've got the zone of incompetence, you've got the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, and the zone of genius. I wish I had time to delve into all 4 of these, but I only got 18 minutes left. Most people during their day are operating in their zone of excellence. They are good at what it is that they do, and they can make a good living while they're doing it. But in the zone of genius, this special area where we use our God-given talents and strengths to do something really, really special. For Brett, his zone of genius is not wine. It's actually people. People having great experiences, people creating wonderful memories, spending time with the people that they care about. And wine is just a part of that. When you listen to his entire interview, he hardly ever talks about the technical stuff with wine. Never once did he say, oh, well, this wine has hints of tangerine, apple, snips and snails, and puppy dog tails, stuff that us mere mortals can't taste. However, he talks about the experience, the fun that a DIY winery can be for people, from picking out their own kind of wines to creating their own kind of labels and then bottling it themselves. Now, he hasn't quit his full-time job to go into winemaking. He's still there, and he'll remain there until he one day retires. For now, when he gets off from work, he just goes to his passion project. He and his wife focus on providing a stellar experience for their customers. So lesson number 1, pick something that you are truly passionate about and want to share with others. Now, I can just imagine someone right now is saying to themselves, but self, I don't have the credentials, I don't have the degree, I don't have the certifications. What in the world can I possibly do? Well, I'm glad you asked. For this, we're actually going to look at our second guest. Her name is Patti Christopher, owner of Patricia's Chocolates in Grand Haven.
I grew up here in Grand Haven.
Okay.
And I've really never left. Went to college here, became a special education teacher.
Oh, interesting.
And then went to Michigan State and got a couple more degrees, graduate degrees, ended up being a school psychologist and had a private practice as a psychologist, worked with children and adolescents. And then I worked as a school psychologist in the schools forever for Grand Rapids Public Schools.
Right.
And Mona Shores Public Schools here, and retired in 2008. And about 5 years before I retired, I thought, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? I was going to retire when I was 51, and I don't play golf. So I thought, well, I love making pastries and desserts. So I started calling culinary schools and ended up starting to take classes at the French Pastry School in Chicago.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Barry Callebaut Chocolate Academy in Montreal. And then they opened a branch in Chicago, too. So I've taken most of my classes from them.
Why the hassle of going back to like the Culinary Institute and to these chocolatier schools and things like that? Why not just do it on your own? Did you have some kind of a vision in your mind at that time, or what did that look like?
I think what I learned, I started looking at pastry books, and I realized that the pastry books I needed to focus on were in grams, not teaspoons, cups, half cups. So the measurements were different. That made me start thinking about Europe and European chefs, and in particular pastry chefs and chocolatiers. It was a relatively new field when I started in the early 2000s with this. So it wasn't that I was going back for another degree because I was already working full-time, so I couldn't do that. But they would have guest chef classes where they would have chefs from France, Belgium come over, and they were 3-day classes. And so I would go to Chicago or Montreal for 3 days and just take classes with other chefs from around the country who had the same interests that I had. So we're all connected. We take a lot of classes together. We support each other. We're in different states. We can help resource ingredients that are important to what we do.
Right.
It's been a blast, actually.
I really wish we had more time to unpack Patti's interview. The story about how she built her delicious chocolate shop could easily be a masterclass at any university. So our psychologist has become a chocolatier. Now, did she get a 2-year degree to do this? Did she spend a year in France learning how to make really great chocolates? No, she probably wished she did, though. But Patti realized that all she needed to do was to take some classes in chocolate. That's it. Some kind of a 3-day, maybe a week class in some city. But what's interesting is that most people think that they have to have some kind of a degree or certification, or else for some reason people won't take them seriously. Now, could you imagine if somebody had walked into Patricia's Chocolates and said, hey, I want to see your degree. What culinary institute did you go to? All Patti would have to do is just shove a chocolate in her mouth and they'd fall on the floor giggling. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to ask you about your certification degree or anything else. What they care about is if you can deliver the results on what it is that you promise. And for Patti, it's about a superior chocolate experience for her customers. That's it. Her chocolates could bring world peace. They are that good. So yeah, lesson number 2. You don't need a fancy degree or certificate to share your passion with others. Now, obviously, if your passion is open heart surgery, then yes, you're going to need some kind of a certification in order to do that. And I get it. But I'm assuming that if you're watching this, that you don't have a passion that doesn't require cutting people open. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the 170 episodes that I've done for this show. I think I can count on one hand the number of people that have some kind of a degree or certification for what it is that they're doing. But these people are all in the financial and medical sector, so that's kind of understandable. After the break, we're going to explore a question that stops most people in their tracks, and that question is this: do I have to really do this by myself? We'll see after the break. Hey, if you are enjoying these great interviews, just take a moment and go to totalmichigan.com/join, and you can get these episodes sent directly to your inbox because there's a lot more great stories coming. See you there. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Total Michigan, where we interview ordinary Michiganders doing some pretty extraordinary things. I'm your host, Cliff DuVernois. Today, we are exploring the question, what if your greatest adventures are waiting for you after you turn 50? Could this next chapter of your life be the most exciting chapter of your life? And during the break, I took out my magic 8-ball, gave it a quick shake, and it said all signs point to yes. So here we go. Now, in the last segment, we heard from Brett from Vinomondo, as well as Patti from Patricia's Chocolates. From Brett, we learned that you should really pick something that you're truly passionate about and want to share it with others. From Patti, we learned that you don't need to have fancy degrees or certificates. So now let's move on to the third lesson. And don't forget, I have that bonus lesson that I'm going to share with you at the end, so stick around for that. Now, when I talk to people and they're sharing with me a little bit about their passion, what it is that they think that they do, a lot of the times they think that they're the only ones who can do it. They're flying solo. They're off by themselves or whatever it is, so to speak. And that can get pretty lonely. But what if you had the people around you that had skills that kind of complemented your own and could really do something bigger than you could just do for yourself? And for that, I want to roll some clips from my interview with Pam Westridge. She runs Tiny Dig Lakeshores out of Muskegon. And let's listen to this clip from Pam.
Kind of a fluky thing. My husband's dad was a home builder in West Michigan here back in the day. He died a few years ago at age 94. But the housing industry, my husband really, once he got out of the military, he was drafted during the Vietnam War. Once he got out of the service, he had his 4 years of college paid for from the Army. So he said, "No, Dad, I'm not going to do the home building with you." But he'd always grown up in that. His dad trained him. Old school dad. He knew from all the old tricks of a master carpenter. And so my husband learned all those. But as my husband progressed in his professions, because he had a couple of them, he ended up being a chiropractor for about 25 years.
Whoa.
And we had a wellness center in Spring Lake. My former career was being a special education teacher, but when he got out of college with his chiropractic degree, we were in our 30s, and I decided, okay, I've done teaching for 10 years. I will help run our wellness center. So we had a very successful good wellness center that we helped and saved a lot of people's health and taught them about wellness for all those years. We needed a change. So back in 2008, we sold that, hit the road in an RV for 7 years to travel.
Nice.
Our kids were out of the house by that point. Our son moved to the West Coast during that time. And Kevin and I that's my oldest son, we kept seeing the tiny house movement and thought, oh, they're so cute. Those tiny houses, they're like little doll houses. Every girl's dream when they were a little kid to have a doll house to play in, or even a kid with forts, because you'll see some of the houses are more rustic. That was my son designed, and my husband designs things. And we design all our houses, we build all our houses, but right from inception back in 2014 or so, we started creating this idea, so a good 10 years ago, and researching it, deciding
And this is over in Portland, right?
Yeah, that was in Portland, Oregon. Tiny Digs Lakeshore here has only been open for like 10 months now.
Oh, wow.
And so it's very new. But back in 2014, when the tiny house movement started really taking off, as many people know, there were probably 7, 8 TV shows on at one time about tiny houses, and it was quite a thing. I had a lot of women friends that were single, maybe divorced or widowed, or maybe never been married, and they said, oh, this tiny house movement is so cool. Why don't you build a tiny house village where we could all go live, have a communal room where you could go do yoga, cooking, crafts, that kind of thing, and a community garden. And I said, oh, that sounds like such a great idea. And so we started checking into that.
You can start to see how the puzzle pieces are coming together. So Pam and her husband already know what it's like to run a business. They already know each other's quirks, but they also understand the different skills that each one of them have and how they complement each other. The thing is, though, is that before this all started, they were doing what most people want to do, and that was travel. Well, they stopped traveling, but they're still in the travel business. Only now travelers actually come to them. So as we unpack Pam's story, it really is a family affair. They all jumped in on this tiny home movement. They've all brought their skills to the table, whether it's construction, interior decorating, taking care of customers, booking slots, whatever it might be. Everybody in the family is doing something to bring a skill to the table that's all making this work together. So the moral story is you don't have to do this by yourself. Even if your family doesn't want to be involved, you can still find partners to work with or team up with. So I know that when I have struggles, especially when it comes to this show here, I often find it's because it's a lack of imagination. Instead of asking myself how to do something, it's better to ask the question, who knows how to do what I need to get done? Who's got a large group of people that I could get in front of? Who knows how to do marketing and branding? Who knows how to set up my website? Who knows how to set up my phone so I can take credit card payments? But I do got to admit one thing I really like about Pam's story. It's a sense of legacy. Their family is truly building a family business. Now, when I interviewed Pam, she was telling me about a new project that they got going on, capitalizing on this whole off-the-grid travel movement thing that's happening. So, lesson number 3, don't limit yourself. Okay, we're now in the home stretch, and I know what you're asking yourself. Is this Cliff guy ever going to shut up? No, but here's the bonus lesson that I have been promising, and it comes from the second oldest interviewee on the show, and that would be Bill Duckwall of Paddling, Michigan. Let's go ahead and cue that clip.
And even while I was flying as a commercial pilot, I had a lot of time off that I could do small businesses on the side. So when I retired from that, and I had to retire at age 60 because I'm 81 now, but that's when I really got going with Paddling Michigan. And basically it's all been done in my retirement years. Of course, I couldn't do, all of it. I've had great staffs. I've had a great general manager named Greg Spuckott that's been with me for about 15 years now. And we've been able to hire the right people and come up with the right products. And, I was just kind of the guy behind the scenes, really.
Right.
Dealing with the capital type expenditures and things like that. Greg kind of ran the business more, but I still like it,
Right.
And I like to keep active in it. I think it's good for my brain. It keeps me challenges every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And I continue to keep going.
I really did like that interview with Bill. One thing I want to key in, though, is on that last part. I like to keep active in it. I think it's good for my brain. I think it keeps me challenged. This is the most important part, why I believe that the 50 plus is the time to turn your passions into something you can share with others. Keeping your mind going, keeping it active, keep challenging yourself to do bigger and better things, to have more of an impact. Believe it or not, all these mental gymnastics help to keep your mind sharp as you go into your senior years. And who knows? Maybe it'll change the world for the better. Links to all of these interviews are in the show notes down below. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. I will see you next week when we talk to another Michigander that's doing some pretty extraordinary things. We'll see you then.